So this is the course you enroll. So AG 104, it's Microsoft Azure Administrator. So by the completion of this course, you should be able to write and pass Microsoft certification. And to best use of the resources. So first I'll be teaching 30 to 35 days, 1.5 hour, 2 hours a day, or depends on the content. So along with that, you will be having access to the Azure A to G portal. That's where you can download all the the course content. Not only course content, you can write the actual mock exams. So we collected all the certification dumps for the past 2 years and 2.5 years, and you'll be having the real questions which will be asked in the Microsoft certifications. And along with that, you will be having a virtual recorded sessions access by Mr. Sandeep Soni. So he recorded all the sessions, something like 60 to 70 hours of course content, along with the practice tests and as well as the course resources. So by enrolling to this course, you'll be having access to all three of them, and you can you can make use of them. Right. Moving forward, what is Azure? So this will be for the beginners. So everything will be covered. So let's start from the scratch. Let's take an example. Okay. So recently, if you're familiar, so IPL 2023 happened. Compared to the other IPL seasons, the other live matches, 52% of the content consumption happened in the mobile phones. That means through internet, right? 5 years back or 6 years back, it will be 90% TV. But right now it's slowly moving. And in 3 to 4 years, as statistics said, it moves to around 90%, it moves to the internet. In that case, the problem is we have to stream the live content with the minimum delay of 4 seconds or 3 seconds to how many users? 22 million concurrent users watch the IPL this season parallelly, that too in 4K and in HD resolutions. And how much of computation we need, how much of storage we need, how many CDNs we have to configure, how many, so those things. Not only that, it's not something fixed, right? While match is going on, a consecutive sixes, a 2 to 3 sixes will lead to again 4 to 5 million people will join in seconds. And we have to provision our servers, computation servers, and all the remaining CDNs, keeping that in mind. And once the match is over, right, we don't need that much of computation, right? We have to release all that computation. Otherwise, it's not worth. It's not optimal, billing. So in a seconds, we have to configure so much of the computation. In seconds, we have to release that much of computation power. It is something not possible in 5 years ago or 6 years ago. It's not impossible, but it's very difficult to do that. But right now, even a startup with ChatGPT has how many? 300 people, 300 developers. And any startups will have 50 to 40 developers. And the Azure team might be 10 people or 5 people. So with that team, we can achieve the same thing. We can achieve this much of scale. That's possible because of the cloud. Be it Microsoft Azure, be it AWS, be it Google Cloud, or any other cloud platform. That scale is possible. And when it comes to cloud, we only think Microsoft Azure or Google Cloud. No, cloud is a very umbrella term, right? It's not something specific to the organization. So if you're storing photos in your Google Drive or iCloud, that means you're using cloud already. It's a SaaS service. That means you're subscribed to that. You pay the monthly or yearly subscription fees, and you will use that. Everyone uses Zoho CRM. Or if you want the Microsoft solution, everybody uses Microsoft Dynamics. All these are we are familiar. Right now, even Microsoft is moving towards the cloud. Previously, we used to have the lifetime access of my professional 2019 or the previous versions. But right now, it's Office 365. We'll get the latest features and we have to pay the yearly subscription. All the services you see here are cloud services. So what is cloud and how we are using? So what is cloud in terms of Azure? That we will see. Let me open a document. Right. So in this particular session, it will be mostly like an introductory session. You'll be familiar with what is cloud, so what Azure, what kind of services it offers, and how you what is your job role? What will be your job role once you joined as an Azure administrator? Okay, moving forward. I'm repeating. So anyone, if it is if unmute, unmute, please mute yourself. There's a bit of noise coming from your end. Okay. As we see, the phrase cloud computing means a type of internet-based computation. That means any application, if it is connected to the internet and fetching the data, and most of the computation is happening in the server in somewhere in remote place, that's cloud computing. So what are those services? Those services can be computation power, storage, most importantly. So previously we used to have file servers and they were not scalable and there will be storage issues. But right now you can provision the kind of storage, in seconds, in milliseconds. Well, coming to the storage, if you see here, a ChatGPT, the kind of content it has, petabytes, hundreds of billions of petabytes of data is needed to process a generative pretext. And if it is Delhi, so the kind of the AI and machine learning models, the kind of data it needed will be in the terabytes. That kind of server provisioning happens in a seconds. That's possible because of the cloud. And you have to host the applications not in one place. Maybe throughout the globe your customers might be there, and you have to host the applications to the nearest location possible. That's something you can do in the cloud. And all the network configuration, mostly it will be built in, or you have to you can customize the networking. And if you want to get the analytics like Power BI or all this data visualization tools, that's something you host it in the cloud computing. All Microsoft has the solutions for all of them. Even Microsoft Azure has almost like 300 plus services, be it SaaS, PaaS, and we'll know more about the terms in later. Right. So what exactly cloud computing consists? It consists optimized data centers. So even in Hyderabad, it's coming in a month, a new data center. There's a data center in Chennai. There is data center in Gujarat. There is data center in Mumbai. Like that, more than 150 places. Azure has data centers, and our data will be distributed. We can configure in such a way that it can be distributed into multiple locations. So we don't have to worry about the loss of data. So previously that was one of the biggest, worry, right? So we have to take the backups regularly. We have to keep the backups. We don't know the availability or SSA of that specific data center. But right now you can configure in a way that your data will be present in multiple data centers, multiple zones. Even if by natural calamity or something, if something happens, you don't have to worry about the data. And this is the most important thing. Before cloud, if you have to configure any computation resource, for suppose let's talk about the virtual machine to server, Windows server to host your applications. First, you have to take the computation. You have to choose the RAM. You have to attach the disks, and you have to pay for the Windows license or Linux license, and you have to install all the frameworks, and then comes to your application. And you have to take care of not locking the resources and properly configuration. Everything is in your hand. But right now, you can avoid all the complexity. There are PaaS services. Even if you want to go for infrastructure as a service, most of the complexity is hidden. The licensing of the Windows and the installation and everything will be taken by the Azure. It's simply you'll go to Azure portal. You'll say how much of the data you need, how much of the configuration you need. That's it. In seconds, it will provision all the virtual network for you, DNS configuration, subnets, and everything will be created in seconds. That's how fast, that's how easy it is. So why businesses are moving to the cloud? Any business is moving from traditional net hosting to the cloud. One, budget. Two, flexibility. Right. So the budget will be saved if you rightly configure. As an administrator, that's your primary responsibility. So how much of the you have to get make use of the most of the computation resources in such a way that the billing has to be reduced. And it's very flexible, as you said. A software company have to deal with the licensing costs, protection of the data, frequent upgrades, patches, too many Windows patches we have to deal with. All that you can avoid or you can reduce with the Microsoft Azure. So what are the characteristics? One, it's remotely hosted, as you know, and it's available anywhere from the internet. It's easy to access and generally mirrors of solutions to multiple data centers, as we discussed. So resiliency and on demand. If you need just right now, if you need the computation service, you don't have to drop any email, just go and configure. And you can set in such a way that it can be configured automatically. Maybe a 90% of the RAM, 90% of the computation is done, 90% of the disk space is utilized. You can set a rule. You can configure Azure services in a such a way that it will be automatically provisioned. And once it is free, and if there is no demand, it will come back. So those services will be released. The extra computation, extra storage will be released. This is that easy. So even if you are there to monitor, Azure will monitor itself. It will give you the alerts. It will provision itself. That's what's called as on-demand self-service. Rapid elasticity. So you can scale up. You can horizontally scale. That means you can have any number of instances, or vertically, or you can increase the capacity. So horizontal and vertical scaling. And broad network access, fully managed by the provider, the vendor. In our case, it's Microsoft. If it is AWS, Amazon will fully manage the data center and the licensing, patches, the updates, and the downtime as well. So that's all. So before moving to the cloud computing service models, any cloud provider will offer all three of them or offer a couple of them. So in case of Microsoft Azure, it has SaaS services, it has platform as a service, it has infrastructure as a service. All three models of cloud computing Microsoft Azure is offering right now. Okay, so before moving to that, any questions for 2 minutes? Okay, right. So what is software as a service? What is platform as a service? What is infrastructure as a service? So when you're provisioning any service, for suppose, let's take virtual machines. That means you want a Windows server or Linux or any of the with their specific operating system, you need a machine. You want to install all the customized frameworks. You want to install the applications. You want to provision the storage. You'll get the complete control of that machine. You cannot control the network. You can customize, of course, you can give the settings, but you'll get the complete infrastructure and you can use that infrastructure. That's called as infrastructure as a service. So what it does, cloud provides build data centers, managing power, scale, hardware, networking, storage, distributed systems, everything it will give. Rather than purchasing servers, software, data center space or network requirement, clients instead buy those resources as fully outsourced services. You'll outsource the outsourced service you'll get. For suppose AWS, Rackspace Hosting also offers that. VMware is known for that. Citrix, Azure is one of them. Google Cloud will give you that. So these are the different companies offering IaaS. Azure really shines when it comes to PaaS services, platform as a service. That means, for suppose if you want to host a ASP.NET Core application, any .NET application, or you want to schedule a cron job. So at daily at specific time, my application should run, be it a Python application, Node application, .NET application. So for that, I don't have to buy a virtual machine. I don't have to go with the infrastructure as a service because I need a single service. So Azure will give you a platform. That means you have to choose what framework you're using, and you have to just deploy the application. You don't need the Windows license. You don't need to worry about the infrastructure. You don't need to configure the storage. You don't need to configure the IaaS server or any Ubuntu servers. everything will be taken care by the Microsoft. That is one more thing. PaaS. What is the difference? In IaaS, you'll get the infrastructure. You have to install the frameworks and all the things you have to do. But when it comes to the PaaS services, you will get the infrastructure ready. You just have to host the application and you'll have control over that specific application. You don't have control over the infrastructure, how it's provisioned, where it's provisioned. You just decide, that's it. And let's read this. Provides developers necessity tools, all the required frameworks. For suppose if I'm developing ASP.NET core application with 6, so Azure will install that framework for me. So my application will run on top of that framework. All the necessary tools it will install. So we just have to maintain. Even these 3 providers are primarily giving PaaS services: Azure, Google Cloud, and AWS. But what kind of PaaS services? Every provider will not offer all the SaaS service PaaS services. So for suppose it said hosting a .NET application or Azure functions these will be different. The configurations will be slightly different. Okay. Now comes to the SaaS service, which every one of us are using. One example is Microsoft 365. So we all have the license to that. So we are using 365 in a regular basis, and Azure DevOps is one of the SaaS service. So few will have, of course, in few organizations have the Azure DevOps server installed in their machines, but mostly will go for the cloud solutions. Right. So SaaS is a software delivery methodology that provides licensed multi-tenant access software and its functions remotely as a web-based service. Of course, from end user's point of view, apps are located in the cloud and it is almost always accessible through a web browser. Not necessarily, sometimes the desktop app will be there, a hybrid model will be there, a desktop app communicating to the web server, something like that. Any application hosted on a remote server that can be accessed over the internet is considered as SaaS. Okay. And usually these are built based on the subscription and the usage. That's it. And apart from that, so you can see the tables here. If it is readable, just try to read that. Yes. When you have to go for the infrastructure as a service, when you have to go for the PaaS services, when you have to go for the SaaS services. IaaS services are most flexible. That means you can do anything with the provisioned service, provisioned requirement. That means you can install all the softwares, you will get the admin access, you can configure your system, you can configure the ports, you'll have access to all the ports. And there is PaaS service. Where is PaaS? Focus on application development. You have a single application, a simple application, then you can go for the PaaS. And so you generally use the combination of both of them. Sometimes if it is not, for suppose some jobs uses a third-party frameworks. In that case, PaaS cannot provide you that. So you cannot install any softwares or any frameworks in this. You have to choose from the existing frameworks. In that case, you go for IaaS. If you are using the majority of the frameworks are very popular frameworks like .NET or Python or Node.js, simple frameworks, go for PaaS. And platform management is handled by the cloud provider. And when it comes to SaaS, it's a pay-as-you-go model. Users pay for the software, they use the software, and that's it. Simple. You don't have access to the application as well. To clearly understand, you can see here. So these are the different cloud services. What is on-premise? What is infrastructure as a service? What is platform as a service? What is software? In on-premise, you have access to everything. Hope you can see my cursor. So you have access to the data, application, runtime, operating system also, television, computation, networking, storage. You have access to literally everything. But when it comes to IaaS, you don't have access to these compute, network, and storage. So these things you will not be having access. But you will be having access to the virtual machine. That means virtually separated machine, right? And you'll have access to the operating system, runtime applications, anything from top of this. But when it comes to platform as a service, you will not have access to the runtime. You will not have access to the operating system, even virtual machine. You don't know where exactly it's provisioned. You don't have access to the computation. You can scale up and scale down, but you don't have direct access to the computation. You have access to the application you installed. You can just see that, you can change that, and you can have access to the data and you can configure the access. So we have to access what are the roles and responsibilities that you will configure in a platform as a service. Let's go forward to the software as a service. You don't even have access to the application, how it is developed or nothing. You just have the data which you entered manually, into the application and access to that. That's it. So if you're developing a solution, what kind of service you have to go, that you have to see. So ignore this as that's not something relevant here, but out of all three, mostly you'll be moving from on-premise to infrastructure as a service or on-premise to platform as a service. So you'll choose based on the requirement and feasibility. Right. So just a simple example. For suppose if you take a car, you can lease a car, you can buy a car, you can hire a car, you can hire a taxi. Right. So what is feasible? If you want a car, you'll have everything should be taken care by you. You have access to everything. So if there is a repair, you have to go to garage, fuel, road tolls, driver, renewables, servicing. Even you have to consider the depreciation and finance and car, everything. But when it comes to infrastructure as a service, you'll be responsible for servicing for the leased period, all these things. But if you hire a car, that's it. You'll fuel it, you'll pay the road tolls, you'll be the responsible for driving. And if you book a Uber or Ola, nothing. You'll just pick up and drop it. That's it. You don't have anything for that period. So simple. So this is an analogy. Till here, any doubts? Anyone can unmute and ask.
So Suresh, so
Yeah.
it's let's suppose I have a team of 5 members. Okay, I'm some kind of a consulting company. I get some projects, develop it and deliver it. So then for those 5 members, 5 employees, so I need to set up some environment. So in that case, it's all about like platform as a service or the first one, infrastructure as a service. So I need to choose from those two only, right? Because I develop some .NET applications mostly. Then to set up my environment, I have to choose from infrastructure or platform, right? That is only. And software as a service, that is something kind of add-on. If I need any applications or anything, that is different. If I want to set up environment, only these two things, right? I can't set up environment from software as a service, right?
No. Okay, so who is this? What's your name?
Sorry, my name is Nagarjuna.
Yeah, Nagarjuna. So coming to your question, so you have 5 members of teams. The access, what kind of access they have in the Azure, that's something the provision we will see. So you will add to the Active Directory, and they'll have access based on you can give the access. And talking about you're saying mostly you're developing .NET applications, right? So
Yes.
in our case, most of our clients prefer PaaS services. If it is a simple .NET application, but if you have it is communicating with some outdated technologies or outdated tech stack, it has some COM components or something like that, then IaaS should be your choice. If it is a modern application which is developed in the last 10 years, which is not using any COM components or you don't, apart from the .NET framework, if you don't need anything, you can go for PaaS. Yeah. And again, that's completely different to the application to application, it varies.
Who's responsible?
Did I answer your question or I'm missing anything?
Yes, Suresh, you are clear.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. Thanks. Anyone else?
Yeah, can you give the example of on-premises? Actually, this is my first class. I missed something in the
Nothing
starting.
you missed. So on-premise is nothing. So it's a private cloud, something like you hosted somewhere else, right? In it, you might have taken a server from GoDaddy or some any provider, which is not scalable or something. So that is on-premise. So which you have access to, you have to manage the licenses, you have to install the patches, all the Windows updates you have to take care. If you have any existing platform, something like that, that is on-premise.
Okay, so what's the difference between on-premises? I mean, the private cloud and the computer. Say for I have
Infrastructure
completed.
as a service. So you can see here. So the blue highlighted ones, that is something will be managed by the cloud provider, any cloud provider. So these three things, if it is an on-premise, you have to manage them.
Okay, yeah.
Good. Yeah,
And
Prasad.
so, how about the SaaS? Is it just a data storage? Should I consider?
SaaS is something, even you, if you develop an application, you want to give it to your subscribers in a monthly or yearly pricing, that is a SaaS service. Microsoft has a couple of SaaS services like Office 365, Microsoft Dynamics Enterprise, that is a SaaS service. You can develop your own SaaS service. That's
I
it.
see. Okay.
Yeah, Azure
Thank
DevOps
you.
is one of them. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Prasad, you raise your hand.
Yes, Suresh. So I would like to know whose responsibility to decide which model we have to go IAS or PAS or SAS.
That you will get an idea once moving forward when you're listening. So that varies. That depends on your requirement. As I said, based on your application, based on your client, and the billing, how much of feasibility and flexibility you need from those resources. That varies.
No, my question is different, Suresh. So I'm asking, these responsibilities will we rely on DevOps engineers or they will be architect who will decide which model we have to go?
Okay, so the DevOps engineer is provisioning for the source code management and the provision of the permissions, the branching policies, those things. So the Azure architect, Azure administrator, and the Azure architect, so they will decide.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah, Suresh. I'm a part of infrastructure team. Actually, we basically work on the on-premise servers. Say, for example, the virtual machines. So we are getting requests from the application team to migrate the server from AWS to, say, for example, be it AWS or Azure. So what would be the ideal option? It will be like infrastructure as a service, right? Like I'm just asking about from the application perspective.
Okay, so it's easier migration. If you so because the same you will have access to the entire into installations and everything, right? So it will be easier to migrate to the IaaS. But it after migrating the infrastructure as a service, if any services that can be migrated, for suppose your team might be having, for suppose a simple .NET application or Python application, eventually you can migrate them to the PaaS services.
Okay, so initial migration would be from the on-prem to cloud IaaS, and which means
yes.
Then you can go for okay.
Yes, because it includes the computation and the storage as well, right? Maybe the storage is happening in the disk itself, in the on-premise server itself. But if you go to the PaaS service directly, so that will not offer you a direct too much of the storage. This for storage again you have to go to the Azure storage and all. So that's why eventually you have to migrate to the PaaS.
So from the on-prem to cloud environment, we can copy entire thing. I mean, the configuration part we can done, but the data itself we can migrate, right? Just for example, yeah.
Yes. You can open the file server ports and you can migrate or AG copy. There are so many tools to copy data from on-prem to IaaS.
Okay, so there will be no risk of data loss as well. We can easily migrate.
Nothing. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, Suresh.
Yeah.
See, as SaaS services, can I assume as a GoDaddy sites will be there now? We can assume that SaaS service?
No. So SaaS service is any application. You're not developing an application. You're using the application. Okay. Office 365 is something you can't make any changes apart from the branding. Will be changed. That do it in the portal itself, Office portal. You don't have access to that application, right? You can't make any code changes, right? That's something SaaS. Azure DevOps is there. You can't change the internal things, right? You just use that service to host your applications and CI/CD pipelines. That is a SaaS service. Okay, I'm moving forward. Okay. Scroll down. We are there. So in cloud computing, there are two things. Three actually in Azure. One is public cloud, another is private cloud, and one more is a hybrid cloud. What is public cloud? If you go to portal.azure.com and if you provision any resources, your resources will be your computation resources or all the resources will be shared along with will be segregated virtually, but will be there with other companies, other organizations. It will be secured. It will be private virtual network will be created. Everything will be there. But the data center resources along with you, all the other organizations are using, right? So that is what public cloud. That's the most popular options. It's most because there will be economy of scale and it will be cheaper compared to the other options. That's why most people will go to the public cloud. And let's read about that. There are clouds which are open or used by general public, be it Microsoft Azure, a general usage, or Microsoft AWS or Google Cloud or any cloud platform. And they exist beyond the firewall of an organization, fully hosted and managed by the vendors. In our case, it's Azure. Your data is stored in the provider's data center, and the provider is responsible for the management and maintenance of the data center. As I said, all the updates as well. Because you're sharing computation resources among the network of users, the public cloud offers greater flexibility and cost savings. This is good option if your demand for computing resources if your demand for computing resource fluctuations, demand fluctuations, if you have, it's better you go for the public cloud because you have access to the entire data center. Anything free, you can use that. You have to purchase the capacity on the basis of usage and can scale up, scale down server capabilities based on the traffic and your demands. This type of cloud environment is appealing to many companies because it reduces lead times in testing and development in new products. What is a con? If you are having a banking application and you have something agreement signed up not to share with the or the other, if you have agreement that you have to manage your own servers, then that you cannot, maybe you're dealing with a government banking project or a government defense project. That is something you cannot trust a third party vendor for that, right? For those high security projects. In that case, people will go to the private cloud, right? They are more vulnerable than private clouds and there is no control of resources used or who shares with them, right? And what is private cloud? In a private cloud, you will have it dedicated, physically separate. You will be physically separated from the public cloud. Okay, your data centers or your storage equipment or everything will not be shared with the other public cloud users. A private cloud hosting solution, also known as internal or enterprise cloud, resides in company's intranet or hosted data center where all of your data is protected behind a firewall. This can be a great option for companies who already have expensive data centers. Your company might be, a Fortune 500 company or, in that range, and you have already invested in the data centers. You already have the existing data centers. In that case, you just need something like an Azure to easily manage, provision, get the analytics. That's it. But data center has to be yours. Then go for the private cloud. You go for private cloud when you have strict security and data privacy issues. What is the drawback? People see what a private cloud is, that all management, maintenance and updating of data centers again will be your company's responsibility. If the devices are failing or if the storage is failing, and then it's your responsibility to manage them. So Azure or any private cloud provider will just give you the OS, operating system, to manage the data center. That's it. And in this case, the easier option is hybrid cloud. It's a mixture of the public cloud and a private cloud. So how does it work? So there will be a few resources will be there in the public cloud, which are not sensitive, and then few will be there in the on-premise. Now, if these resources has to be communicated with the on-premise services, there will be a Azure Express route. That means a dedicated cable will be provided between these two systems, and Azure will provide you with that. So in that case, the sensitive information will be there in the on-premise, and the other analytics or any not so sensitive resources will be there in the public cloud. So in that case, in that way, you can get the best of the both worlds. Okay, they consist of external and internal providers, namely a mix of public and private clouds. Secure and critical apps are managed by the organization and not so critical and secure apps by the third-party vendors. For example, you can use a public cloud to interact with the client, but keep the data secure in a private cloud. Now, most top companies are switching to the hybrid cloud environment. Okay, this is ideal in situations where you have plans to migrate the complete cloud solution as existing hardware expires. So for suppose you might already have purchased $1 billion of licenses and all those packages, and once it expires, you want to eventually migrate to the public cloud. Then first they will opt for the hybrid cloud and then eventually migrate if they want to. Right. Now, what are the advantages and disadvantages? One, it's cost effective, as we discussed. Improved performance as it's scalable, and reduced software cost because they purchase the bulk licenses, right? Unlimited storage capacity because you have access to the entire data center. If they are free, of course they will be free. So because of course Azure or Google Cloud is future proof, right? They'll have abundance of storage. You'll have access to all the free storage. You just have to pay and provision. That's it. And universal document access providers have fully redundant data centers. So they have data centers at every location. It's secure, physically it's secured because that's their responsibility just to provision and management of the data centers, right? And what is the disadvantage? Of course, it needs a continuous internet connection. We are not developing right now. We are not developing desktop applications, right? If it is a web application, you need an internet. If it is a low speed connections, of course, it's an issue anywhere if you host. Features might be limited based on the provider you choose. That's something you'll get to know once you go deep into the Azure. It can be slow sometimes. For suppose maybe 3 months ago or 4 months ago, if you are familiar, Microsoft Azure went offline. So all the Office softwares didn't work. Microsoft Teams didn't work. Of course, it's for a specific region. In India, it did work for 2 to 3 hours. It didn't work. So sometimes it can be slow, as limitations will be there. And stored data might not be secure as some guess, but it's improving. If your data is stored abroad, whose policy do you want are there? This is the most important thing. For suppose the Indian financial information has to be stored in the Indian as per the laws, right? When it comes to EU laws will come into picture. And China will have different laws, but where you're storing and those policy provisions, sometimes the data center, for suppose if you want to scale it up, you have to scale it up only in the Chinese data centers. Chinese data centers might not be available at that particular time. Then it would be an issue. So those are the minor limitations. Majorly, so it will be advantages only. And so that's it. So what are the cloud jobs right now? So just see the any job portals. If you, as we are taking AG 104, it's not for the developer. You will be the Azure administrator who will be responsible for primarily provision of the resources. And if you want to migrate, if your company is migrating from on-premise to the Azure or cloud, so you'll be responsible for provision and migration. And you have to create the virtual network and VPN connectivity, storage accounts, database provisioning. And if you already have the existing licenses, you have to use those licenses. Otherwise, it will be expensive again. And scale in and scale out on demand or manually. And it's better if you have a system engineering experience. Even if you're moving to the cloud, at the end, you are working with the configuration, system configuration, right? And hosting experience, of course, we need. So what are the frameworks that have to be installed? PowerShell scripts. It's better if you have some PowerShell experience as well. And this will be a primary responsible. And apart from all that, you will be responsible for optimal billing. So are we using the complete computation, or are we using the complete storage? Can we scale it down? Can we make it elastic? So how much of the availability it has? How much is the failure rate? Right. So what applications are failing more frequently? Are we configuring Azure Application Insights? So what Azure Application Insights is saying, so what kind of data it is giving, and what, for suppose developers might have forgot, and it's some method is failing continuously. So what are the error logs? So all these things you have to take care. And when it comes to 204, the developers mostly will be responsible for using cloud solutions like PaaS services, or mostly PaaS services. Maybe how to use the web apps. Maybe they have scheduled task with the task manager or the Windows scheduler, but they can move it to the the Azure functions and the other those kind of services, and Azure Web Jobs are there. If it is a storage, Azure Storage is there. All the connection strings and all those things can be managed in the Azure Key Vault. Like that, Azure has almost like 300 services, which includes Azure Open AI. That means you will get the same ChatGPT engine. You can use the same machines, the same models, and you can have your custom data, and you can use the Azure AI services like chatbots, the auto completion, the same models you can use. So that's also part of the Azure right now. So these will as a software engineer, a 204 Azure developer associate will be responsible for these things, responsible for design and development of different types of softwares, can take advantage of managed service such as Azure. For support database, previously we have to purchase database server, but Azure database as a PaaS service now, and storage, queues, cache, service buses, like that. There are hundreds of services based on the availability, based on the architect's decision. You will be, we have to choose. And Azure architect's responsibility is the combination of all of them. Cloud architect. So he has to manage the administration team and the development team, and he will give the direction and how to use and what kind of resources, what's the migration plan. That's the cloud architect's responsibility. And as someone asked previously, DevOps engineer responsible for automation of deployment. Maybe as some of the students already using Jenkins kind of a solution. And that's something part of the Azure DevOps right now. CI/CD pipelines you can create and measure between the development and operations team, how to do that. So how to, what's the process, and sprints management and branching policies, branch protections, and maybe in CI/CD pipelines, the code quality checkup, all those things are the responsibility of the DevOps engineer. For managing the infrastructure through version controlled source files that can be used to recreate cloud environments in hours and minutes instead of weeks and days. Right. And so what's the experience needed? So if it is a 204, maybe 2+ years of professional, anyone can target this, and a 104. So something like a 4 years or 5 years of experience is needed. And the architect typically will have more than 10 years of experience, and DevOps. So these things. So maybe 3 years of experience is enough for the DevOps. So what are the certifications? We don't write IBM certifications, so we encourage mostly the Microsoft Azure certifications, which are cheaper and which adds more value to the or to you if you are having Microsoft certification. And these so these are the different services. Any doubts still now? We'll move to the Azure portal later.
My question is, what is vertical scaling and horizontal scaling?
Yeah, so we'll come to in depth later. So, but briefly to tell you, maybe if you're having one virtual machine, okay. So horizontal scaling means when there is a demand, one server might not be enough for you. If the demand is doubled, you can do two things. The horizontal scaling means with the same capacity, you can take another virtual machine. Two virtual machines will be there, and a load balancer will take care where to provision. So two computation machines will take. And vertical scaling means the same computing, same machine, same virtual machine. You'll increase the capacity. You'll increase the disk space. You'll increase the storage. You'll increase the RAM. So if you do that, that's vertical scaling.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Sure. Anyone else? Okay. Moving forward, let me go back to presentation. As I said, you'll be having access to all these things. Along with that, you'll get a practice pass. That means you don't have to buy for the Microsoft Azure if you want to practice. Deckensoft will give you a limited practice pass to provision the resources to get the to use. You can provision any number of resources and you can practice them. So where to practice, how Azure portal will look like? Let's see. So let me go to. Let me go. Give me a second. I'm opening an Azure portal right now. Okay. You can see there is a portal.azure.com. Let me open in a private window. That's better. Right. When I open this, it will ask for the sign in. So we'll give you the sign in details as well. So maybe I log in with my account. Signed in. This is how the Azure portal will look like. You can see all the services here. Maybe while I'm trying to create a resource, see these many resources are available in Azure. If you see, you can provide virtual machine. You can configure that. Web app is a platform as a service offering to host your .NET, Python or Java applications. And SQL database, again a PaaS service. So you don't have need to buy the SQL license directly. You can deploy into SQL database. Function app, if you have a scheduled jobs or an on-demand jobs, if you want to fire some events, you can go for Azure Functions. It's a replacement to the jobs, cron jobs, which typically do with the Windows Task Scheduler or SQL Batch Scheduler. With, apart from that, if you don't want to use that, Function app will be the better thing. It's a serverless. That means it doesn't have any server. And Key Vault to store all your private keys. Maybe previously it used to be the connection string. Right now there will be connection string, there will be service bus connections, there will be, or maybe you are using some third-party APIs, those connections. If some data breach is there, you have to change everything previously. But if you use the Key Vault, you just have to change this, reset this key. That's it. So all will be secured. And Data Factory for the data, for the data visualization to get the unified data. And there will be logic apps, maybe a Facebook post, Twitter post, and all those things you want to customize those kind of solutions. You don't even have to write code. It's a codeless approach, right? And automation. And if you don't want them, these right side you can see these are infrastructure as a service models. If you need a mission with Windows Server 2019 data center or Windows 10 Pro, Windows 11 Pro, you can choose. And Microsoft right now is currently encouraging you to use Ubuntu. It's not the old Microsoft. They used to stick to the Windows. And for the matter of fact, if you want to create a web app, Linux option will be cheaper compared to the Windows option. Right. So because you're using Microsoft Azure, previously it was Windows Azure. Mostly Windows services used to be there. But right now, mostly even Microsoft is slowly moving to the Ubuntu. So you can provision Ubuntu servers here. For example, let's see. Let me create a web app. Right. Let me try to create. Right. So you'll get to know about what are the subscriptions. So where it will be hosted and how to provision all those things you'll get to know later. I have multiple subscription, but you'll be having single subscription that Microsoft will give you something. So see, if you see, I can publish a Docker container. I can publish a static website or a typical code, and I can choose in this. See, platform as a service in Azure is supporting these .NET versions, these Go version, these Java applications, Java versions, these Node applications, PHP versions, Python versions. Apart from these versions, you won't be having access to the other versions. If your application, mostly it will be enough, but some niche applications doesn't support these versions. In that case, again, you have to go to IaaS services. That's the advantage of that. But if your application is developed in these frameworks and it's supporting these frameworks, then you can directly go to the PaaS service. And where my application has to reside. Is it it's US? C. These are the different countries, West US. If it comes to India, there is a Central India, there is South India, there is West India. So 3 data centers are right now available for this particular resource. Maybe the other data centers will be available for the virtual machines, and some are available for the different needs. But if I want to create a web app, in India, these many options. If I choose from the US, see, there is a Central US, East US 2, North Central US. So who are the target audience? Based on that, you'll provision resource in the nearest location of the users and see the Linux plan. So what are the Linux plans? What are the, you can choose that. So runtime, for suppose if I choose .NET, and Windows. I can choose Windows or I can choose Linux. Right. And zone redundancy. That means if I want to copy this application to another location, like that. So there will be zones, there will be data centers. We'll get to know how to work with them, how to provision. So this is the creation of a sample application. Let me try to create a Windows Server 2019 data center. It's an IaaS solution, infrastructure as a service. If I open, see here, no infrastructure redundancy is required. That means in a single place it will be installed. And do you need a 64-bit? Right now, ARM64 is not available in this specific place. And you can choose any configuration, Windows Server 2019. And then once you choose what is the size, it's a 3.5 GB of memory, 1 virtual CPU, and this is the plan. You can choose any plan or how much of the RAM you need based on that billing. See, this is the average billing. If you choose this plan, if you choose this 16 gigabytes of memory and 2 virtual CPUs at once, so 7,200 will be the in Indian rupees. This will be the bill, and you'll choose that, and then you'll provision disks. How many you want a premium SSD or HDD? So all those things based on that, the speed, network speed will be there, and what is the key management if you have any license. So those all things you will attach. And so you'll provision these, you'll provision the networking management, and then done thing. Review plus create, your resource will be created. Simple. This is the portal. Once you enroll, you will be getting access to the portal as well. Okay. Apart from that, and I will show you the website. You might be already familiar with this website. .com. You go there and go to courses. You can see AG104. This is the syllabus. You will be having the video access to all these. And there will be interview questions also here. And if you want the certification dumps, azure-a2z.com, again, another our portal. Go to certifications, exam dumps. There will be mock exams.